What is the best conversation you accidentally overheard? I was at a graduation party for my best friend when she graduated high school in 2007, and a boy she was hanging out with at the time was there. He had to use my friend's house phone to call his mom, and the last thing he said to her before hanging up was, "I'm a grown-ass man, mom. I'll skateboard home." We still use that to this day. I was walking past a bar one night and a man was standing outside on the phone and I caught, "Look man, I need to tell you about the monkey." I overheard two people's epic encounter a while ago. So a woman comes into the bakery and as soon as she steps in, a man greets her. He proceeds to ask her about what's new and how she's been the last 20 years. The woman obviously knew the guy and they engage in a 10ish minute talk about their spouses, kids and jobs, basically everything new from the last 20 years. Then they decide to meet up next weekend and have a cup of coffee. The woman then asks him to say hi to his sister from her. And his response is, "I don't have a sister." At that point both their faces were priceless. She asks him, "Wait, your name is Pete, right?" He responds, "EHH, no. Your name isn't Karen?" I burst into laughter sitting a few meters away. They had been talking to a complete stranger about the last 20 years of their lives. They said bye to each other in an extremely awkward manner and went on their way. Met my boyfriend's family, then walked into the other room. She's nice and all, but I really liked X's name better. Whatever happened to her? In Costco and they had giant crab for sale. Little girl, "Dad, what do they eat, Dad?" Little girl's called Megan. I was in a bar one night and while you probably wouldn't call this an accident, because she was screaming, a couple were breaking up. She was yelling at him because he didn't want to buy her another drink, because lo and behold she was drunk and making an ass out of herself. To finish her tirade she screamed in a high-pitched annoying voice, and every time we ducked I ducking faked it, to which he looked at her deadpan and calmly asked, "What makes you think I was ducking you for your benefit?" Drop mic. Walk off to applause and laughter. Overheard more or less. At a past job I was accidentally sent an email from a woman at an office several states away that basically said, "I've thought long and hard about this, and I'm still apprehensive about it, but I'm ready to meet you at a hotel." It was followed with about 10 recall message attempts. My freshman roommate in college would talk on the phone 24/7 to anyone and everyone. His GF, the girl he was cheating on his GF with, and my personal favorite, some random conversation that I was barely paying attention to when suddenly, "Oh, I forgot to tell you, your daughter broke up with me yesterday." To this day I kick myself for not paying attention from the beginning. There was a little girl and her mum on the train. They were watching some video about fairies on the mum's phone. The girl turned to her mum and said matter-of-factly, "Mummy, you are my best friend, and I am your best friend." Yes, the mum agreed. Of course. The little girl then nodded and said, "Okay, I love you, Mummy." She promptly fell asleep on her mum's shoulder. I got off the train almost crying because that's ducking adorable. Just happened yesterday. I was sitting at a restaurant for lunch and at the table right next to me were two gum defusal guys from the police. Shirts that said it, police jackets, radio on the table. Quite official. I'm German and work in a rather small town, so such a thing is quite rare. One of them told the other, they seemed to be new colleagues, that one of his former colleagues had a gum once with 4 buttons in each corner of the room and the gum itself with some weight trigger. A team consists of 2 gum specialists, so one of them ran in circles pressing the 4 buttons in the corners and the other was sitting on the weight trigger and trying to defuse the gum itself. I'm not sure if it was just training or if this was a real gum. Otherwise, duck. That sounds more like an action movie than a real life gum. 2 old men talking about the plot to my cousin Vinny. They were trying to remember the name of the movie but they couldn't do it. My wife and I ended up buying their dinner, and we made our own little game based on it called Ambiguous Movie Plot, where you try and stump the other person by giving just enough details about the movie so it pisses them off when they hear the title, but not enough so they can guess it. While on a dinner boat ride in Memphis, Tennessee, I was lucky enough to be a few feet away from a man who was discussing his bus service business when Hurricane Katrina hit the southern states. When the flooding hit and people needed to be evacuated, the government seized his buses to assist in the rescue. He mentioned that he gave everyone a brief demonstration to the military drivers on how to operate the bus before getting in his own bus and following the convoy, which was destined for Louisiana. For about a week or two he was down there assisting with transporting civilians out of the flood zone area and bringing in helpers and supplies to the area's medical facilities. Then Red Cross and or more military support came in and he wasn't needed. He drove his bus all the way back to Tennessee straight home and hugged his family. It was one of the most emotional and mesmerizing stories I've ever heard of someone just dropping everything in a time of an emergency to assist others. The whole time I'm just staring off port of the ship, just watching the river for 20 minutes while listening to him tell his tale. A tall overweight African American woman at Walmart with her 10-12-year-old son. No, I will not buy Call of Duty. I will not allow those immoral games in my house. And besides, I just bought you the new Saints Row last week. You don't need a new game yet. I was dying. It wasn't the gums that she thought were immoral. It was the overpriced DLC and $60 reskins every year that she was against. I was at the bathroom in my university, washing my hands, and overheard a dude talking softly in one of the stalls. Stalls are completely closed with a wall in between them. When he stopped speaking, I heard the guy next to him talk in a similar way. This went on for a few more seconds, until I heard one of them say, "In a minute, I'm in the bathroom right now," followed by the other dude, "Haha yeah, me too." First dude, slightly louder already, "Wait, are you next to me?" Then second dude, soft, possibly, louder, "Hey Mark." First dude, loud, "Hey man." They both started hitting the wall to make a noise and started laughing. To which I responded with, "You guys are so cute," and then I left so they wouldn't know who I am. My wife and I were at a pretty fancy restaurant, where they have their wine list on iPads. We were in a celebratory mood and decided to splurge a bit and get some glasses of wine that were $15 a pop. Shortly after we got our wine, this old guy walks in with two young ladies. The sommelier comes up and asks if he had any questions about the wine list. The old dude says, "I trust you. Just bring out something that's reasonably priced." Sommelier looks back a bit baffled and says, "I'm sorry sir, but would you kindly let me know what reasonably priced would be?" Old dude puts the wine list down, calmly smiles and says, "Anything under $5,000 a bottle will be just fine. Thanks." Ended up ordering 3 bottles over the course of our dinner. Crazy and entertaining all at once. A great moment overheard while on honeymoon. American couple walking just behind us on Dubrovnik city walls. The man begins, "It's crazy how they've managed to avoid Starbucks or McDonald's setting up here. That would be like opening a strip club in a national park." The lady replies with righteous indignation. With absolute sincerity her partner responds, "But what if it were a really nice strip club?" Was walking through campus one day. Passed by a girl having a conversation on the phone and overheard, "It doesn't matter that you came in last. You went to the Olympics, remember kids? Being world class last is better than being nothing." My future wife talking about me to her friends at a party we were at where I met her. She hadn't realized I'd shown up and heard her talking about me through a window. To this day, I've never told her about it. She was very flattering to say the least. This one time I was on tour with a band called Weatherbox in New York, playing a show in a basement venue. We got parking for the van right across the street, so a few of the band members and I walked around to get some food. After a few blocks, we approached this group of people walking slower than us. As we came nearer, we could hear snippets of them discussing our band and the show they were going to, which we were going to play at. I looked at them and said loudly, "Duck Weatherbox. That band sucks." They were put off and continued walking. We were walking the same direction though, so we had to keep walking together, and they eventually figured out we were in the band. Laughs were had. Recency bias here for sure, and it's more just one line I heard than a convo. But a few days ago I was at a convenience store and this college-aged dude was just walking through the aisles. Not picking anything up, going through the same 3 aisles over and over and over. Meanwhile I'm grabbing my drink and snack. I'm in there for about 3 minutes and he's just pacing the aisles. Very creepy. I am paying for my stuff and he walks over to the counter, and I can instantly smell weed up. The cashier looks at him and says, "Can I help you?" The kids reply, "Am I going crazy? Or do you not have milk duds?" Kid was just mega baked and wanted some milk duds, and here I was judging him like he was some criminal. He is my spirit animal. Whilst commuting on a tram, I remember hearing a conversation between two drug dealers discussing a drug trade that they were trying to organize with some major mob members that were well known within the media. I remember they both exchanged looks to me while talking business to make sure I wasn't hearing what was going on. Quickly and swiftly I averted my eyes to the window and pretending to change the songs on my iPod that was muted to hear the discussion. They carried on talking. Not sure what product they were talking about exactly, but I remember hearing the words kilos and certain hundreds of Ks and to watch out for some particular individual referred to as a dog. One for all the fantasy football fans out there. It was 2009 or 2010. Tom Brady had just been involved in a minor car accident and the news stations were all over it. I overhear two guys talking in a diner in the small town I lived in. One guy sees the headline and remarks, "Oh no, Tom Brady got in a car accident? He's on my fantasy team." The other guy says deadpan, "Yeah, he's dead." It was just silent from that point on and I laugh at the memory every time Brady makes the news. Work overnight in a college apartment community. Around 3 AM. Saw this girl walking back to her apartment with a guy I've never seen before. I'd worked there 3 years at this point and knew all the residents and some of their friends. She was holding onto his arm. Maybe she just wanted to be close to him. Maybe it was kind of cool outside. Or maybe she was just doing that thing that girls do sometimes where they try to be so close the only way they could be closer is if they were sharing each other's skin. She told him, "I don't normally do this." The funny thing is she did it all the time, bringing random guys back to her apartment in the middle of the night. I literally lolled as they walked past me. I went on a trip to the beach recently with my boyfriend, and it was stuffy in the room and there were no fans AC, so we opened a window. This couple came out of their room and sat in the courtyard right by our window arguing. It was annoying, since it kept us up, but eventually as we listened we just started cracking up. The gist of it was, "Oh, I just can't believe you'd say that to me." Him, "I just said that one outfit was more slimming. That doesn't mean I think you look fat in other ones." We pretty much lost it. We couldn't believe that cliché argument actually happens outside of sitcoms. I have a contribution from the other side, so to speak. There was a private zoo for sale here in New Zealand in the Bombay Hills just south of Auckland, to be precise. The topic came up cause my partner at the time was working for Realestate.co NZ, the largest property portal in the country, and they had discussed the listing in the office earlier that day. We were discussing the zoo, its price, its features etc. while we were sitting at a reasonably noisy restaurant. Our waitress snuck up on us to grab some empties just as I asked my partner, "Can you check if the 1.2 million includes the elephants?" I'm sure I've never seemed more interesting and wealthy at any other point in my life. Poor, misled waitress was staring at me when I went forward to pay later. Overheard my co-workers talking about their preferred method of contraception. Funny enough, the one that said pull out was pregnant like a month later. Two guys making sandwiches at my local deli were arguing over what the best movie ever was. One man was arguing that Kindergarten Cop was the best movie ever created, and the other was just arguing that it wasn't. The one arguing that it wasn't gave a couple valid arguments that seemed easily deflected by the other man. It eventually devolved into them shouting it's not a tumor at each other. I was at the movies. Just wait until your dad hears about this, Mom. It's not that big of a deal. What you did was disgusting. It was a betrayal of my trust. It was a betrayal of everything I believe in, but most of all you betrayed yourself. Once you have the two together, you can never enjoy the one without the other. Mom drawn out into about 30 syllables. It's no skin off my nose. I've never done what you did. You are never going to go back to a time that you haven't done this. At this point I am dying to know what this kid did and I'm trying to stay near enough in the crowd to hopefully find out when they are joined by the father. The mother points accusingly at the kid. He had a soda in the movie theater. Mom, it wasn't a soda, it was a lemonade. You've mixed sugar and the movies. Now you will constantly want to snack while you're watching a movie. You know I raised you never to eat in front of a screen. Edit. My favorite part of this conversation was the roller coaster of emotions I experienced. First, the curiosity. I had to know what this kid had done. Then, well, that's a little over the top. Then finally, when is the last time I saw a movie without a candy or soda? Why did my mother never tell me about this? I was showing a network admin how insecure Voint can be by showing him how to hack his network with a free program. We found a call and started listening in. The Voint call we ended up cracking into was the VP and other heads of the company talking about a birthday party that they were throwing the network admin. They went on to say what a nice guy that the network admin was and how much smoother things ran under his care. The guy was nearly moved to tears.